So I'm Marianne Souloumiac. I am a cultural strategist. I work with different museums and institutes here in the Netherlands. I am a granddaughter of Robert van Gulik, and I am a board member of the Royal Asian Art Society in the Netherlands.
Dear Roland, thank you very much for joining us as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the EU and China. We are producing a short documentary highlight achievements EU and China, and we look forward to your insights. And over the past 50 years, what have been the most iconic culture and artistic exchange activities between the Netherlands and China? How have these interactions enhanced the mutual understanding between the people of two countries?
It's in the last 50 years, of course, a lot has happened. It has been a very interesting time also in China, where there's been such an enormous growth. But where we can see that there's been truly a lot of innovation in the arts and in culture. There's been, of course, many exhibitions exchanged between the Netherlands and China. But we also see in the field where we see really iconic buildings and architectures that actually stayed, and I wanted to say something a little bit more about that, because if we look at really the innovation that has happened, we see in Beijing, for example, the CCTV was built by Rem Koolhaas, a Dutch architect. We have the Tianjin Library by MVRDV that was built in Tianjin, and also a beautiful building is the Guangzhou Television Towers, which was made by, of course, Iba, a Dutch architect as well. So that we've seen a lot of architects that have brought very iconic designs and that have worked together with Chinese to really work on these new cities and on this new thinking. And then we see a lot of these kind of practices that they have learned from China on how to, build these new environments, and also cultural projects. There's been a lot of museums that have been built, a lot of libraries, that they have brought this technique back to here. So really bringing an exchange. So I think when we're really facilitating in culture is where we see really both ways acting as a bridge. So here also it's very fascinating that this year, and it's great to hear that it's in the 50th year's anniversary, is that we will have a Chinese architect who's going to build the Migration Museum here in Rotterdam. So this museum, which will be opening next month, is the Museum of Migration, and will be the first museum dedicated to migration through contemporary art. And the Chinese architect Ma Yansong has created a tornado. So it's a sculptural shape whereby when you enter, you go through a whirlwind, a tornado, and at the end, on the top, you have a beautiful view. And that's a bit to explain the experience of what migrating is about. So that's really a beautiful project, very deep, and also very, of course, important in our times. So by bringing these two cultures together, the more practical side from the Netherlands and the more poetic side from China, we also see that there's been so much innovation happening in also forms and all shapes in the arts.
In recent years, what innovative projects have the Netherlands and China undertaken in areas such as museum collaboration, art exhibition, and film production? How do these partnerships reflect the mutual complementarity of the two countries?
Yes, so in the last 50 years, of course, there's been enormous amounts of exchanges in the exhibition fields, and also on different traveling expositions. We had the World Expo, of course, which brought a big pavilion full of culture. But recently there has been a lot of historic exhibitions that have had a lot of attention in the Netherlands, notably the Wu Zetian exhibition, which was, of course, about the only female empress of China. It was received with very warm feelings from the Netherlands public, and really gave a strong image of a woman leader, which was quite striking, and also who brought a way of thinking into, being good and just to people, and changing the system with imperial examinations. It's been very inspiring to have this exhibition here. It was developed also with a Chinese partner, so we hope that that's something that can travel also afterwards in Europe. But other projects include also Made in China, which was here at the Wereld Museum, which has been a really terrific exhibition, and they have also worked commissioning also young designers and artists to produce new works. And looking at contemporary China as well. So from ancient to today, you see a lot of interest into the maker's culture of China. Then I also wanted to say something because we're talking about co-creation and also best practices between the Netherlands and China. And I just want to reflect also on film productions, because this year, last year, the Diranger series came out on Netflix of my grandfather Robert van Gulik, and that has brought really this project, which I think when I look back in the last, even in the last century, has been done so much, bringing a Western idea together with a Chinese historical story, bringing the two together. Creating something new that is a really interesting, innovative model for culture, so really good to see that today it's on Netflix and that people all around the world can enjoy this story, and it serves as a bridge not only from the Netherlands and China, but also from past to now, and also merges different generations, older generations and younger generations, which are both enjoying it. And I think that these are really best practices with regards to culture when you create something together.
The Netherlands has rich experience in cultural heritage preservation and urban renewal, and while China is also actively exploring similar paths. And how can the two sides share experiences and collaborate in this field?
Yeah, so urban renewal is a very important field, and there's a lot of exchanges that happen. But as I said, what's really interesting is that the experience which leading urban renewals had in China is then brought back to the Netherlands, and then the Netherlands continues on this kind of Chinese method. So that's where the exchanges become really, really interesting, and really brings a change into people's lives for the better. And there's a lot of experiences from urban renewal which are equally also interesting for the Netherlands to learn about. You spoke about heritage, which is for both countries a very important subject, and I feel like there's a lot that we can do more in this aspect, especially with the rich technological developments of China. We're very impressed by what we see with what's happening in museums, notably in the use of AI or digital experience. That's where we would also, there's so many chances to explore that more into how can these digital practice benefit the research and also the preservation of our cultural heritage.
And how can the younger generations of the Netherlands and China building connections through cultural exchanges, such as studying abroad, art festivals, and social media? And what significance do you think Jong's bond holds for the culture heritage?
So it's essential for young people to travel and to experience each other's country. And what we have seen, which has been particularly beneficial, has been exchanges in between with different schools. So for example, there's been a lot of Chinese designers that went to the Design Academy in Eindhoven or Sandberg or other artistic institutions, and then stayed in the Netherlands and started galleries where they brought Chinese and European artists together to create new works. So we see some tea and art galleries that have opened up, And these are really, really important because that means that you're building a group of ambassadors in both countries. And equally, we've seen artist residencies in Beijing, but also, of course, in Jingdezhen. There's a lot of interest, of course, in ceramics, and also in the industry of making. And there has been a lot of designers and artists that have spent time in Jingdezhen and really learned so much and are so energized by making works that they also come back and become ambassadors for China, and vice versa for the residents here who become ambassadors for the other countries. So that's something that's really beneficial and very important to continue to grow. And with social media, there's a lot of examples whereby we see also a lot of interesting influencers that are active and that are also sharing what they're going through in their lives, and through films that are, also reaching out to broader audiences. Yeah.
And looking ahead to the next 50 years, and what breakthroughs do you most anticipate in the culture field between the Netherlands and China, and what advice would you give to a policymaker or cultural institutions?
So so in the next, so it's a long time, but in the future, what's important is to keep these roads open, to continue building these bridges, and these can only happen through long-term exchanges. And so it really is important to keep on also supporting and nurturing long-term exchanges, which are exhibitions, but also through residencies and through knowledge platforms, because there are so much that we can do together. We see the challenges that are coming in the next 50 years, of course. AI is going to play a very important role and can also be a chance for dialogue, but also for learning more and using it also in a positive way. There's so much we can learn more about that. And also we see a lot of opportunities in the next 50 years where China is really ahead of the Netherlands and also Europe is in green development and in the ecological thinking, whereby we see in China there is far more knowledge happening on this side, and also looking at Chinese philosophy, which is very close to nature, a kind of poetry which is ingrained into harmony and ecology. There's so much we can learn from there. Also, the arts can take an essential form in that, so that's very important. But most important is to stay open and curious to each other. And I think for both parties, for the Netherlands, it's also important to work more on a European level, because there's so many exchanges that can happen where you bring Chinese artists to experience not only the Netherlands but also other countries along that. There's much more that we can do if we join forces also as on European collaborations. Yeah. So to mark this special moment, the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relationships between China and the EU, it's important that we continue building bridges through culture, we continue to learn from each other and work on co-creation, notably in domains that affect us all, including ecology, heritage, but also digital culture. Congratulations on this special year, the 50th year anniversary of diplomatic relations between the EU and China. We hope that we will continue to build strong bridges between both countries through culture, through learning about each other, through dialogue, through exchanges, and through co-creation.